right. We're so glad to have you here, old and new faces. Welcome to our EM service. We're glad you're here. A couple of quick announcements. As always, offering is on Venmo or through Zelle. And so the offering information is up in the front. As always, Zelle is the easiest way for us to handle finances. So that's the preferred method. But if you don't have that, you can always give through Venmo. Your offering and your tithes. And then last announcement, in a few weeks, so September 3rd is going to be our annual big, it's just one day. Instead of meeting here, we're going to meet there at Castle Canyon State Park, shelter number 3. We'll give you guys information as we get closer, but it's just a day for us to hang out, worship together. It's more like a brief worship, and it's combined with food, games, different things like that. So we'll see you guys there on September 3rd at 11 a.m. And I want everyone who can be there to be there, okay? All right, so welcome to EM. We're glad you're here. Today, we're doing a new series. And so for those of you who are here, you're like, yeah, I'm so glad I'm here today. Because our title today is The Foundation and the Beginning. The Foundation and the Beginning. So can I have 2 volunteers come to the front, please? 2 volunteers, or I will voluntold you if you're not volunteering, okay? So 2 volunteers to please come to the front. I'm going to have 1 male and 1 female. So Jalen, can you come? Because you're going to be going to college soon. I won't be able to call on you anymore, okay? So Jalen, and then we're going to have Brendan, okay? So Brendan's going to come to the front. All right, Brendan, please come to the front and take your positions, okay? You guys can step up here. All right, who knows what this is? It's knockoff Jenga, okay? But what's the point of Jenga? Well, how do you win, though? Do you guys know how to play Jenga? Okay, so what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to take a piece out and stack it on top without making the whole thing fall down, right? Okay, and so the point of the game is whoever it falls on, that person's a loser, right? Okay, and whoever doesn't make them fall is the winner, whoever that may be, okay? So kai bai bo, figure's going first. Ready? Okay, so do you want to go first or second? She wants to go first, okay? So we'll see how Jayla makes her move. It's shaking a little bit, okay. Wait. Before you go, isn't it you can't do the top 3 rows? Okay, you can't do the top 3 rows, including the 3 full rows, right? Okay, you can't do 3 full rows. All right, yeah, that was pretty close. He's doing the top 5. Okay. Look at Jalen brave, and she's going for you can go on the, oh, and if you touch it, you have to do it right. Whatever one you touch, oh. Okay, all right. So our winner is Brendan, only because he was just patient, okay? All right, can I have you guys move this down to the bottom? Thank you. Okay, so Jenga, the point of Jenga is we're trying to make the foundation unstable, right? Because the point is that we want it to fall. Now, if your house was like Jenga, who in here is in the market to buy a house, okay? Very few of you are Jaden wants to buy a house, apparently. She's got the credit for it. She's got the down payment for it. She has all of that. When you go and buy a house, what's the first thing that happens? You go into contract, and then what happens next? Who knows? Well, what's in the escrow process? So before appraisal, what do? Inspections. Inspections are very important, okay? So they're inspecting the house for any kind of structural damage, any kind of leaking damage, those kinds of things. You could love the house. It can be beautiful on the outside, but if something's wrong, critically wrong, the foundation is falling apart. If you jump 10 times in the middle, it's gonna crack that day, the house, And if they tell you that, if you're smart, are you gonna buy that house? No. You're not going to, okay? Because a foundation that's broken means that everything else, how beautiful it may be, it will not stand. And so that is the idea behind today. Because most of you in this room who were at Fuse or who weren't at Fuse, a lot of you, I know that we gave testimony last week. Those of you who missed it, it was like really fun to watch. All of you who are up here now, you know exactly what I see, right? Like from the front, what it looks like, yeah? But when you gave testimony, I know a lot of you said, like, I was really touched by God in different kind of ways, right? And here's the thing. A lot of you are saying, I want to like actually grow now. You know, like I don't want just like one time, 3 days, you know, like woo, and then that's it. And then I just like go back to the way I was. Like I want to actually kind of grow in God, but like kind of. Not like totally, but like kind of, you know? Or like I'm at a place where like I want to actually know for myself, like what is church? Like what is God? What is this Christian faith? Like some of you in this room, you didn't grow up in church, but you're curious and you're asking questions and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Others of you, you've been at church forever, and yet when I ask you about your faith, you really don't know. Like there's not a lot of knowledge, and that's okay. But the point being is that sooner or later, you will realize your foundation maybe needs some work. Without a foundation, you can't build anything. And so with our spiritual walks today, that's what I want to ask you. I want you to actually ask yourself, what is your foundation like? A lot of you, your foundation is built on your parents. Your parents went to church, so you went to church. Let me tell you, as the older you get, that foundation won't work anymore. It's kind of like, you guys know when, like kids in like 5th grade or whatever, you guys, who had to do this? Like toothpicks and glue to build like a bridge. You know what I mean? Like that project. Okay, Nick and I were like 90s kids. So like that's like a typical elementary school project. You had to use toothpicks, glue to build a bridge that could like hold something. I forget what it was. But obviously, can that bridge hold a car? No. But when I'm in 5th grade, that bridge is like, I can make that. But when I'm an adult and I'm a civil engineer, I'm not going to build a bridge out of toothpicks and glue. I'm going to build an actual bridge, right? When you're young, your toothpick bridge might work for a little while. In other words, your faith from your parents or your faith from whatever source it was may work for a little while. But as adults, which all of you, almost all of you in this room are adults. I got three non-adults in this room, okay? Besides those non-adults, everyone else in here is an adult. If you're 18, you're an adult now, okay? And you have to take ownership of your life and your faith now. And so toothpick bridge won't work anymore. What does my faith really mean? Your time is precious. Why are you here on Sundays, right? What is the point of knowing God? These are questions you need to ask yourself now as an adult. Why do I come here? Why do I want to know about God? Okay? So that's what this is about, is the foundation and the beginning. Because without the right foundation, you can't build anything. It will all crumble and fall. One storm comes, it will all fall apart. And you know what we do? We say, oh, God, you weren't real because look, my foundation totally fell apart. But he's like, honey, you did not build a foundation. It was not built on me. Because it was built on somebody else's faith. Or it was built on like, oh, I just have to do this. Or it was built on X, Y, Z. Whatever you build it on. God is saying, if it's not built on you knowing me, then it's not going to stand no matter what. So like when you come off of a retreat, I don't know how some of you guys have been this last week. Maybe it was like up and down. Maybe you felt the tension of like, I want to live for God, but it's hard. That's good. That's good if you felt that way. But like, what does it mean to actually grow in God now? What does it mean? And those of you who are like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. Well, you know what? In Matthew 7:21, this is the verse that literally, when I heard this, it was speaking to me. And that's when my life turned around. And it was saying, Lord, Lord, we're here into your kingdom. Let us in. And he's going to be like, look, I don't know you. And they said, we prophesied in your name. We did all these things. We served for you. What do you mean you don't know me? And he's saying, I don't know who you are. In other words, he's saying you could go to church all your life. Literally all your life. You could be 65, 70, 80, 90 years old, man, woman, I've been to church all my life, whatever you're going to say, and you could not enter his kingdom because you were just doing it all for what? Not with him as the foundation. Maybe it was you, maybe it was for you or me, you know? That's the scary thing about Christianity, is you could know all the talk and walk all the walk, but if you don't really know God, you don't got nothing. And so let me ask you, what is your foundation? Look at your life right now, your life patterns, how you spend your money, your time, your energy, what you care about. Look at your life right now. What is that foundation built on? If you're younger, you're still building your foundation. So good. If you're older, you know why it's harder? Because our foundation is real set. Even if it's crooked, it's real set. But God is saying, look, you build it like that, it will not last. And so here we are, the foundation in the beginning. Can I have everyone stand? We're all going to stand right now to read this passage out loud. And it's out of Genesis 1. And I know all of you know this, but do you really, really know this? Okay, can we all read this together? Just right here. There's 2 slides, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. In the beginning, hold on, out loud. Like your mouth has to move and sound has to move through your vocal cords, okay? That's how it works. Ready? Take a deep breath. Breathe out. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Next slide, please. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And evening passed and morning came, marking the first day. May be seated. Okay, now, what is this saying? In the beginning, God created. Do you understand? I think everyone knows that verse, most of us. But do you really understand what that means? Do you understand what that means? Okay, who knows what Big Bang Theory is? Who knows what that is? What is that? Okay, how? What happened? Something triggered something to start, right? How do we know this? Okay, but what about space? What's happening in space? Even now as you speak, it's expanding, okay? Like you have a balloon, you have dots on it, you blow it up, it begins to expand, right? That's what's happening in our universe. Now, that is so crucial and so foundational. Because everything that we're now, that actually was discovered in the 1920s, not 2020, okay? So 100 years ago. So in the last 100 years, science is finally explaining what Scripture has said thousands of years ago, that there was a beginning. Now, if there's a beginning, what does that mean? There's an end, correct? Good job. But what does a beginning mean? What does a beginning mean? Think hard, y'all. What? There's a start. Something or someone outside of that started this beginning, right? That's what that means. Now, most people are like, okay with that. Now, what does it mean that something or someone outside of space, outside of time, who is all powerful, who is personal, who can create, who wants to do something, that is the one, whoever that may be, that created and started all things. It can't be a dog. Like your dog, what's your dog's name? Jalen and Jaden? Junie and Juno, right? As cute as they are, can they start the universe? Are they that smart? No. Soju, Anju, Caitlin, are they that smart? Are they that smart to start the entire universe of all things of all time? No, that is not true, Caitlin, okay? No, like it can't just be like some random speck of dust that starts what is so a complicated, beautiful, creative process. Have you ever thought about, like, when you go outside and you look in the sky and like, have you ever thought about like how tiny you are, like in the grand scheme of things? Like you are on a glowing ball. Well, that's the sun. No, we're not. We're on this like ball that's like moving around, and it's like moving around, and it's like moving around. Like, isn't that crazy to think about? Like, how crazy it is that this intricate, crazy, beautiful universe, it had a start. And if it had a start, there was a starter. All personal, all powerful, outside of space, outside of time, all of creation. That is God. Now, that is what we know to be true. Now, why is that important? You're like, yeah, I know it. Do you really know it though? Because what this world tells us is that there is no God, that we are all a product of chance and evolutionary forces, which there is evolution at work throughout the world, but that you are just a speck, you are a survival of the fittest, you made it, good job, congratulations. Like, that's what the world is telling you. Like, we just are. And there's nothing outside of time or space controlling anything. Now, listen, think about this. If there is someone who is a creator, then there is someone who is more powerful than you and I. There is someone who has greater control than you and I. There is someone who is greater and beyond anything you and I could ever do. What's like the latest technology going on right now? Isn't there like a lot of AI stuff going on? I heard there was like something in the White House. They're like giving you money for like, if you can use AI, right, to like figure out their like problems. I don't know exactly. I'm looking at Jack. Like, Jack, you are a representative of the American government, man. But there's something about like the White House is giving money to people to use AI to like find their like, I don't know. Anyway, there's like crazy weird technology nowadays. But even the greatest minds of the world all combined ever together could never, ever be greater than God. And if you look at human beings, you know what they're doing? They're like, that's what they're doing. You know, it's like, that's not true. Like, I am the greatest. We are the greatest. We can create and do all things apart because there is no God. That's what the world tells you. It's what the world tells you everywhere you go. Do you see how counter we are to the culture to be a Christian? You believe there is a God who is outside time, outside space, who has creative energy, who wants to create, who is personable, who loves and knows you, has made all things for us to be in this world to rule with him. That's what makes you so different as a Christian. Do you live like that? Do you live knowing that there's someone beyond your control, someone who knows your life beyond what you know? See, this, just verse 1 alone changes the way you live. Because that you and I live, when we know that in the beginning God created all things, when you truly know that, you know that there is someone who is in control outside of you, someone who is good and great outside of you, who has control over your life, who gives you free will but also knows all things. Do you live with that knowledge, or do you live like you and I are God? There's only two camps. Either we believe there is a God. Even the people who are like, I don't believe in God at all, like atheists, right? They don't believe in God at all. They still believe something, right? That's still a belief. Like, it's a belief on something. And all belief is founded upon stuff we know, but there is always faith involved. Now, let me ask you, what do you really believe? What do you really believe? Now, God is like an interesting topic because all of us have something personal that we've experienced with God to some degree. I know one of our students mentioned last week, like he went to a fuse and he was really, really angry at God, didn't realize he hated God because of what he experienced. That's probably like 50% of you, actually. He's the only one brave enough to admit it. You know, like 50% of us probably had something that happened in our life that we're like, what? God, like what is this? Like, you can't be real, you can't be good. Or if you are real and good, you're not for me because I don't want you. That's a very common experience. And yet, what does it mean that in the beginning he created all things? Now, it doesn't end there. In these following verses, we're not going to stand, you don't have to stand in front of this, but in these following verses, we see what God does to create. He says and he speaks and he does, and things are formed. Can we have the next verse 6 to 8? God said, let there be space between the waters. So he made sky and waters. Morning came, evening came, the second day. Next verse passage. God said, let there be water beneath the sky. So dry land appears, oceans, land, Pangea, anyone? Like, this is beginning to happen in our world. Day, morning, the third day. The fourth day, the next one. Let lights appear in the sky, separate night from day, sun and moon, stars in the sky. Saw that it was good. Evening came, morning came, marking the fourth day. Everything God does, he does with purpose and intention. And what he creates is good. What he creates is good. God does not create evil. God creates good. Now, next week, I'll go into evil because that's a really important thing. Because everyone always asks the million-dollar question. If God is real and God is good, then why is there evil? It's a very important question. We're going to go really deep into that. It'll be good. But let's start with this. What God first created is good. What God first intended is good. Now, who here believes that God created the world in 6 actual days? There are some Christians who do believe that, okay? Even among Christians, there's some differences of interpretation. Now, but most of you have grown up in science, hearing about the billions and billions of years that Earth has been around, right? So how does that reconcile with 6 actual days? Now, this is where all of these things are important, but I want you guys to know these things because you'll come up against these things saying how can you be Christian, but you believe that? That's a bunch of baloney, said nicely, you know? But here's the thing. There are lots of ways. First of all, Genesis is not a science textbook. Who's read a science textbook? It's been 10 years since you read a science textbook, okay? Many, many years, all right? But Jalen, we haven't read science textbooks in many, many years, right? But obviously, a fiction book and a textbook reads differently, right? So this is not meant to be read as a textbook. It's meant to be read as a story. And yet, the story tells the truth. And so in this truth, we see the word day it can mean multiple things. It could mean 24-hour day. It could mean a season of time. It could mean a whole different array of things. And so when we see morning and evening, the first day, second day, third day, it doesn't have to always be a literal 6 days. Because guess what? The sun and moon was made on the 4th day. We didn't have 24 hours until the 4th day. But the preceding 3 days also said days. Does that make sense? So we don't actually have 24-hour days until the 4th day the sun and moon were created. And so we can see that these are seasons of time. Now, long seasons of time, right, throughout history. And yet we can see that even in Scripture, we can see how it aligns with what the world tells us about what we see in science. There are lots of ways that what God says lines up with what we are now finding out to be true. Notice, morning, evening, as these seasons of time pass, God is doing his work. For what? For what? If you were an all-creative God, what would you do? What would you do? He's creating something. It's getting progressively more complex. Day 5, we have fish and birds. Day 6, we have livestock. What's happening? At the crown of creation, we see in Genesis 1:26, it says this. Now, this is very important. It says here, then God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the earth. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. What does this say about you? There is something distinctly unique about you. You are made in his image. Male and female together represent God's image. Turn to the person next to you. Who's the closest person next to you? Look at that person's face. Give them a good look. You're like, oh, real awkward. Okay, but turn around. Look at them. Jack, look at Chisung. There you go. Okay. All right, look at that person's face. Okay, and you look at that person and you say, you are made in God's image. Ready, set, go. You are made in God's image. You are made in God's image. This is why when we actually tear each other down and say things negatively about each other, you are tearing down God's image. This is why when you look in the mirror and, okay, who looks in the mirror and they're like, dang, I look fine, you know? Okay, good for you, all right? But who looks in the mirror and they're like, you see whatever, X, Y, Z, that's not what you want or not what you think, you know? Do you know that you're going against the image of God when you do that? This is why God made you in a physical body. He could have just made us all souls, you know? Can you imagine like all of us like as like different color like souls or something like that? Like he could have done that. But he made us embodied. Jesus came as an embodied God, as a God in human form, in our form. Your human form is precious. When I had a daughter, obviously I had a son before that, but I think our society does hold different standards for men and women, right? As progressive as we have become in our world, we still hold a double standard for women. We do. And like when I had my son, I think I was very stressed too, but I just breastfed, didn't do anything, and I lost all the weight and like more. Like I was really, really thin. And so I was like, this time it's going to be great, you know? Like second time around. 6 months come along and I'm like, something's not happening this time. But I caught myself. I think I was like holding her and feeding her, and I had all these like negative thoughts about myself, you know? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm just like an ajumma, which I already know that. But like, I'm just like a chubby ajumma now, you know? And I realized, you know what? Everything I say, she will listen to and she will do the same thing. And I was like, when I look at her, I think she's the most precious thing in the world. Like, you all know my kids' thighs. Ji-young's thighs, man, they are something else, okay? She might got a small head, but she got like thunder thighs, you know? But like, I think it's so cute, right? Like, they're so cute. And I'm like, you know what? Like, if I think her thunder thighs are so cute, like how much more when God sees me, does he see someone precious and worthy? When I speak against that preciousness and worthiness, I'm speaking against God over myself. Does that make sense? Like, this is how foundational this is. That what we think about God, what we think about who controls and who has power, when we think about like what I was made for as my body, in this body, we have to understand that God made us in everything else he spoke into existence. Male and female, he created with his hands. In chapter 2, you see that he formed man out of the dust of the ground. And he formed Eve out of man. He wants us to know how precious and how important you are. You are not just some random chance. You are created for a distinct purpose with worth and value. Now, as we wrap up, that was like a lot. There's like a lot in this context that I didn't even go into. But this is the foundation. Do you understand that God created all things? And because he's all powerful, outside of time, outside of space, all knowing, all powerful, does it make sense that sometimes he might do things that we don't understand? And when I don't understand it, I'm not going to be like, you know, or what's my reaction? Maybe I will do that too. But I have to remember, hold on. The creator of all the universe outside of time and space, who cares for me, knows for me. He is the one who knows beyond anything I can know. When things are hard in this life, like, who do I look to? Am I trying to control my world? Am I trying to compare, even within each other? You look at each other and you judge. You look at others and you judge them for what they do, what they say, what they look like. Be careful what comes out of your mouth, because you are cursing the image of God. When we bring others down, or when you bring yourself down, you curse the image of God. Friends, this is how important this is. Your body right now in your life, this is why we take care of our bodies too. But your body that you are in, this is how important it is that he made you in his image. A year and a half ago. So if you guys have been to my house, y'all know that half my garage is the church's storage unit, okay? And when my parents were living with us, space was even tighter. And so one day, this is how all ideas start in the Lee household, okay? One day, Stacey goes to Sam's Club or Costco. That's how the story always starts. And I walk past something, and I'm like, it's on sale, okay? And it's this huge, huge shed, right? And like, it's like this giant box, but I'm like, babe, you gotta come to to Costco because the shed is on sale. And my husband's always like rolling his eyes like, it's not going to fit in the car. I'm like, yes, it will. It will fit in the car. That's always how everything starts in the Lee family, okay? Now, somehow we got that big old shed to my house, okay? It was cold. It was like December or something. It's always like the worst time of the year to do it. But I was like, we're going to build this now. And he was like, it's cold. I'm like, no, if we don't build it now, we're not going to build it. And then it's just going to like freeze there. So we build it now. He's like, okay, fine. So we cleared out space next to our trash can. Okay, we cleared out space. And like, this is how there are two people in the world. People who open a box and lay out the instructions and lay out all the pieces and turn the page and follow the order, right? That's how you should make things. And there are people in this world who tear open the box, throw the instruction booklet outside, and literally just start like putting things together. And those two people usually get married. And then they fight all the time about how to make things. So here we are trying to make things, okay? But it's like a huge shed, you know? So I'm like holding this piece and he's like banging on it. And we finally have gotten like the floor down and like the walls up, but the doors have to go on, okay? Just who knows what happens to these doors. And, so we're hooking the doors on and they're not hooking. Like one's hooking, but the bottom is not. And like, it's like so bad. And I'm like, why is this not working? Why was it not working? Do you guys know? Who's smart in here? What? No, we followed the instructions because it was me. I was in charge. But what happened? See, I was getting very mad because we followed the instructions, but it's not working. So why was it not working? Who knows? Who's smart enough? Think about it. The walls are up, the floor is down, but the doors aren't hooking correctly. Wait, what? No, onto the walls. The angling is off on the walls. Correct. We had not actually like done the foundation correctly. We didn't realize that that part of the like backyard was slightly like ever so slightly slanted to where it was like you can barely tell when you're on it, but that foundation was off. And so the doors and walls would not shut correctly. But guess what? We're Korean. So I'm like, just push through, okay? If you push hard enough, it's gonna work. And we finally got all of it together, but still to this day, if the wind blows hard enough in our backyard, you'll literally see the door falling off of the shed. And my husband's like, why do we put, like, literally it's locked. Like, you know, those like old school, like high school lockers, it's locked, but like the door is off. And so you can just walk into the shed and steal Moksa님's golf clubs, all right? But the point being is this. The foundation was not set correctly from the beginning. And so as we built. We didn't notice that first, but eventually everything didn't work. And what was the point of that cheap shed on sale if the door's not going to close correctly, right? But we got too lazy, we can't do it again. So that's just our shed now. Now, it's just a shed, so it's okay. If you come steal my husband's golf clubs, he's going to come get you. But the point being is this. A shed's a shed. But your faith is more valuable than a set of golf clubs, right? Like your faith, what you believe, how you live, that's way more important. Some of you in this room, maybe you followed all the directions like you should, right? Like you've done all the right things. You've gone to church. You like read the Bible once in a while. You like know one memory verse, you know? John 3:16. And like, you know, like one praise song by heart. And you're like, I have followed the instructions, but something in my life is not working. The door is swinging out in my faith. And I don't know why. Some of you in this room, maybe you're like, you just are debating, do I buy the shed or not? Like, do I buy the shed or not? Like, do I buy into this faith or not? Maybe that's where you are. Maybe you've built halfway and you're like us at that point in the cold December winter day, being like, oh shoot, it's too late. We got to keep going. But if you keep going, that foundation will always be off. Now ask yourself this question as we end and close today. What do I believe about God? What do I really believe about God? If I was put in a corner and locked into a room, which is abuse. But like if that happened to you for days and days and days, and you really had to sit with your thoughts, what do you believe about God? What do you really believe? Not what you've grown up with, but what do you really believe? When you ask that question, you might like be surprised with your answer. But I want you to know you have to start there. Even if you've built most of it and you have to start over, it's okay. Start the foundation right. In the beginning, God created. That is your foundation. What does that mean about what he says and does in your life? Can I have the praise team come up? As we sing this song that we sang a lot at Fuse, it's a new song for the rest of us. There's a part in this chorus that says, teach me to abide in you, to be in you. And the guest speaker talked about believing in Jesus being not this like, I believe, I give you my life, but I abide in you. I'm going to sit and stand and be with you, in you, with you forever. That's what it means to be saved. That's what it means to follow him. And this passage says, teach me to abide. And I really love that phrase because we don't naturally know how to abide with Jesus. We don't naturally know how to be with God. He teaches us how to be with him, how to know him, how to love him, how to live for him. And it starts with the foundation. Maybe some of you in this room, you're like, dude, I just feel like all these storms of life coming and my door should be like hanging by like a just an inch, you know? And you're like, everything is turning inside out. It's a storm in my life right now. My friend, you are in the right place. Because the storm has to come for you to realize that the foundation is off. And we need to start over with this truth of who he is. This week, as you go about your week, I want you to ask yourself, what do I really believe about God? And don't go to some wacko quacko place to find the answer. Like, come to the place where there's truth and there's freedom and there's life. Can we all stand?